Welcome to Between the Now and the Next podcast. I'm your host, Heather N. Justice. Today, I get to share my conversation with Naeem Fazal, and it's a really good one. Naeem is the founding pastor of Mosaic Church. He is a Pakistani born and raised as a Muslim in Kuwait. He came to the United States in 1992 after the Gulf War. That same year, Naeem had a supernatural experience with Christ that changed the course of his life. He graduated from the College of Charleston in 1998 and joined the pastoral staff of Seacoast Church, where he led several ministries. In 2006, with the help of Seacoast Church and the Association of Related Churches, also known as ARC, he planted Mosaic Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is the author of 2 books, Ex-Muslin, and the one we're talking about today called Tomorrow Needs You. He often speaks at conferences, churches, and different events. He and his wife, Ashley, are the proud parents of 2 amazing children, Asher and Nura, and unfortunately, the owners of 3 cats. I'm thrilled to share my conversation with Naeem. I hope it resonates with you and that it challenges and encourages you to tune into the beautiful moments in your everyday life. Because when you do, fear loses its grip and your sense of hope gains strength. Here's my conversation with Naeem Fazal. Hi, Naeem.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, I was so excited when I got to read your book, and I have it here. You can see it all tabbed up.
Oh, wow. That's serious. That is serious. I need a picture of that. That's serious. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I read all the books that come across my desk, and I do it. I do my research. I read it. I don't skim it. I really read it, highlight, I get into it. Because I want to see how I can apply these things to my own life,
Yeah. That's awesome. So good.
Yes. But before we begin, from your introduction, I just have to understand why you're unfortunately the owner of 3 cats. Are we not a cat person, or like what?
You know what? Yes. So yeah, the truth is I'm not a cat person at all. My wife is, my daughter is as well. And so that's why we have them. Yeah, they are. And listen, I don't despise them by any means, but you know what? They just pee in all my stuff. So that's the problem. So we've got a rivalry going on. So that's the issue. Yeah, they love my gym bag. I don't know why they do what they do. And so, if they would just leave me alone, I would leave them alone. It'd be a great relationship. But no,
exactly. It's almost like kind of with dogs, when dogs know you're not a dog person, but they gravitate towards you.
Yes.
Cats maybe do the same.
They do. I feel like they do. They stay away, but then they want to cuddle up, or they want to do. And I'm like, I'm not your guy.
Yeah. I get it.
But yeah, so.
I'm a dog person too, so I get it. I understand.
Nice,
I have 2 little dogs, so I get it. So I really enjoyed reading your book, and it is such a needed message, I feel like, in the world today, because we just get so caught up in all the hustle bustle of everything, and we really can forget to see these beautiful moments in our everyday life. And I'm just curious, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, so the title of the book, Tomorrow Needs You, actually came from a conversation that I had with my dad. So my dad, as I wrote in the book, my dad actually tried to commit suicide. He tried to take his life. And after a conversation with him, or during a conversation with him, he just told me that, he just believed that no one needed him. And so in that conversation, he was convinced that really I didn't need him. His kids didn't need him. His grandkids didn't need him. The world did not need him. He just felt like he was useless and not needed in the world. And so as I tried to convince him out of that, I also realized that he really couldn't see why we needed him. So I remembered having a conversation about his grandkids and the fact that we are all settled as immigrants here in the U.S. and now we've got everybody here and grandkids and all that. And he really couldn't see. He couldn't see the beautiful things around him. And so, yeah, that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because, number one, I believe that there's so many people who are convinced that tomorrow doesn't need them.
Yeah.
Because of regret, because of whatever in their life, because of their unique pain or trauma, they just get to a point where they're so full of despair.
Yeah.
And in one sense, it's darkness. Like they just don't know what to do. They've isolated themselves and they start believing the lie that no one needs them. No one notices. They don't matter. And so, they just believe that no one needs them. And then what happens is that as they're feeling this, thinking this, believe in it, they in fact are unable to see really what's truly going on and the beautiful things in our life. And so that's why the book is called Tomorrow Needs You, Seeing Beauty When You Feel Hopeless, because I
Yeah.
really do believe that beauty is a sign, but also the solution to the fear and anxiety and the depression, in our lives.
Yes. And I just think that's so beautiful because I've been through those seasons myself, where
Mm,
I think most people go through dark times and some have the ones that are even darker where they are just
mm,
completely hopeless. And I'm thankful for my hope in Christ and that because of the hope that we have as Christians that brings us to a point where we can come out of these dark moments and
right.
and be able to see the beauty that is around us every day because that's hard. It's a struggle. It's hard to do
Yeah.
just daily to live, your life.
Mhm.
You can't get out of bed and you can't cook a meal for yourself, like take care of yourself. It's just even the most basic things become really difficult.
Yes.
And that's so
Yeah. So
hard.
true.
But you write too in your book just about how beauty really is the antidote of fear and how we need to use beauty around us to combat fear. And that's really something I never ever thought about. And
Mm,
your book got me thinking more and more about that. And I know that if I'm walking or walking my dogs or seeing people out in the neighborhood and I take a moment to connect with those people and say hello and see a flower growing and taking time to see beauty around me in nature and God's creation, but then also in the people and the relationships that He
yes.
brings to our lives,
Yes.
that is huge.
Yeah, yeah, it does because it allows us to just stop and consider something else that's going on around us. Because sometimes the anxiety, sometimes the things in our life just make us very self-centered, and they center ourselves on everything. And so, what we're more preoccupied with sometimes is what's happening inside of us, and we need to be self-aware. We need to know these things. But when you get so caught up in just being internally focused, then you can't see external things and you can't see everything around you and in front of you. It's like, yes, like beautiful relationships, people, opportunities, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think when we stop and really consider, it's a huge thing. In the Psalms, there's a phrase that pops up from time to time. It's called Selah
Mhm.
or Salah, which means just stop and pause. And so the writers in the Psalms would write a section about God, and then they'll stop and they'll say Selah or Salah,
Mhm.
which just means stop and reflect, stop and see, stop
Yeah.
and consider. So yeah, there's power in that, of course.
Absolutely. I love how you indicated that fear, grief, and failure will not imprison us.
Mm,
And I found this so true in my own life because I realized that I've been on a personal growth journey myself the last several years. I had always been afraid to try new things because I was afraid of failure.
mm,
And I started trying new things. I started teaching myself how to sew, watching a YouTube video, teaching myself how to do that, learning a new instrument, really saying, what's it hurt? Why am I so
mm,
scared? Why am I so fearful to try something? I won't know if I'm good at it unless I try. And
right.
so I let go of that fear and that idea of I can't do it if it's not going to be perfect, right? The perfectionism. So I let go of those things and I just tried and found it to be really empowering to be able to do that. And then also I learned that some of these things are actually really fun and give me something to do when I get off of work because I use my brain all day at work. But some of these other things I get to use my hands, and
Right. Yeah.
so it's really cool to be able to incorporate that. But I was so afraid of the failure. And so I
Mm,
was letting the fear of the failure get in the way of that. And that was keeping me imprisoned from really trying out new things and being able to experience new opportunities that might come my way. And so you mentioned that it makes a great argument for why we should not attempt things and why we should never try to step out or take chances. So, do you have an example of this in your own life? And was there something that you were afraid of attempting or taking a chance on?
yeah. So, that's a great point that you bring up because I'm not quite sure if I talk about it in the book, honestly. I'm not quite sure if I did. Maybe you would just because you've got all the notes.
Yes.
But I think I talk about how we have to put fear on a leash because when you put a dog or
Hmm.
an animal on a leash. I mean, you've got the one end where you're controlling it, and the other one is the the object being controlled. And I joke about it, the fact that when my kids were little, I mean, we were on a cruise and we had to put my son on one of those toddler they call them harnesses, but they're pretty
Yes.
much a leash. I mean, it's pretty much
Right.
a leash.
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
seriously, it was so strange for me too, first of all. And I was like, this is nuts. But we were on a boat, or on a ship or whatever. And my wife was like, oh, he's going to fall off the ship. I was like, it was also our first kid. So we're like, okay,
Right.
we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. But what's funny about that is like these days they make them where they look like these nice, cute little backpacks, but
Yes.
they just happen to have a harness on them too. And I think fear does that. It's like fear wants you to put on this backpack, put on these things. It tells you certain things, and then it holds the leash. And so
Yeah.
anytime you are faced with an opportunity that's a little uncertain, maybe an outcome that seems a little unclear, maybe just a chance to try something that's beyond familiar, to go and attempt things, or maybe you're just not quite sure if you know how it's all going to turn out.
Mhm.
What fear does is that as soon as you go in a certain direction, it just pulls you and controls you. And so what we don't want to do is live a life controlled by fear. We want to actually control fear, because
Yep.
fear is actually good for us, like as in a limited amount, a certain amount. Like, so I say that a fear is a cautious companion, but a terrible master.
Mm.
So it's a cautious companion because fear allows us to understand and consider twice about what we're going to do. Like, it protects kids and adults from harm. It's a guidelines, it's a guardrails, it's things like that. Of the fear of the law of the Lord is good too. It's the idea of like, okay, the awesomeness of God, understanding and respecting the fact that this is something bigger than myself. So I think fear is good
Yeah.
in that sense, but it's terrible when it wants to control your life. And
Mhm.
so I talk about how you really need to allow love to control your life, because love is the only thing that takes back control from fear,
Yeah.
as the scriptures say. So yeah, in my life, I find myself like in a practical way. I remember this was kind of a goofy thing, but I remember like always having this fear of like snakes. I don't know why. I just did. So I was like, you know what? I want to be able to not like totally freak out if I see a snake, and I want to get to understand them a little bit more and all that. And so I got a pet snake. There's a corn snake, but I got a pet snake,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, yeah. And then I have, from time to time, held different kinds of snakes, a python, things like that. And it was just me going, I'm just not going to be controlled by it, because if I'm ever in a point where I just need to handle the snake, I don't want to have this reaction.
Wow. So you were like, I'm just going to face it head on, kind of, and
Right.
that's what we're going to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I mean, I've got some other fears too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I find myself like challenging some of the fears. Writing this book was a huge fear, a different kind of fear. It was like
Hmm.
a fear of rejection, a fear of embarrassment, a fear of when you put yourself out there, in a sense, people go, okay, well, is that it? You got nothing profound to say. When you don't write,
Hmm.
when you don't say anything, people just assume what they want to. They might think, oh, this guy's great. But when you put yourself out there, when you put actually what you know on a book, on pages, and people get to read it and they go, it was okay. That anxiety was real. So I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
Also, my first book, Ex-Muslin, was written by a collaborator, which meant it was written by a person who was a professional writer.
Hmm.
And she's on the book. She's like, because when you read Ex-Muslin, the title of the book is Ex-Muslin, Naeem Fazal by Kitty Murray. So she did a great job. So me attempting to write this book on my own, again, that fear, that anxiety, that what if I'm not quite sure, that uncertainty definitely played a part in my life. And I was like, but I have to attempt to do this. I've got to do it. So,
Well, I'm just gonna speak some life into you right now and just say you did a great job. I hope you don't have any of
oh,
those feelings inside that this book was anything short of amazing. Like seriously,
thank you.
it's just so needed, and I said that before, but since you expressed that, I just want to make sure you
Mm,
know you did a great job. And I really got to thinking. I didn't think about beauty,
mm,
being this something to get rid of fear, and
mm,
so it's really thought provoking. I love in your book how you talk about that we have to appreciate or grieve our past. Otherwise, we're going to end up either repeating our past or being
Hmm.
paralyzed in the future. And so, whenever I think of someone looking back, like when I'm thinking about stories in the Bible, you can probably already guess what I'm going to say, but I always think of Lot's wife.
Yeah.
Is that any correlation to that story in the Bible? How could we look at that from this perspective?
The issue is that I think it's a very profound story of understanding just the danger of focusing on your past. Here's what usually what happens is that some of us don't want to face our past because it was traumatic. So we never look at it. We never look at it. Just because we don't never look at it doesn't mean we don't carry it around. We carry it around. We just don't never acknowledge that we're carrying it around.
Right.
That's the issue. And so it's always with us, but it's like the thing we don't talk about. It's the
Hmm.
briefcase, it's the backpack. You just go, hey, what's in this? Nothing. But we don't want to look at it. It's the thing that you keep, even from, like sometimes when you move houses and live somewhere else, you bring the stuff. It's in the attic. It's just stuff. It's just stuff. You never want to go through it. You don't want to do that for whatever reason. And so I think sometimes our past is traumatic. We don't acknowledge it, but we drag it along. Sometimes the past is terrific. We bring it along because we're always talking about it. We're always comparing. We're always thinking, oh man, I want to go back to that. That was it.
Hmm.
Both of those things, I think, turn us into kind of a pillar of salt. They turn us into, in one sense, you can even think they could turn us into bitter people.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, like not salty people, but in one sense, yeah, you could,
Yeah.
because you know people who are like, just they're just bitter. Why? Because they're still holding on to unforgiveness. They're still holding on to something. They're still holding on to a hurt, an offense. They're still holding on. Where was that? Well, that was in the past. Well, what are
Right.
they doing? Well, they're still holding on to it, and that's just corrupting their soul. It's
Hmm.
changing them as a person. So I think that's a great illustration for that. I think the same is regret too, or focusing on like, man, I want to go back to where it was. I want to go back to this. I want to go back to that. Still, it makes us not bitter at people, but it makes us bitter towards God.
Hmm.
I sometimes have thought, I know God has forgiven me, but are there things that I haven't forgiven God for? See, I think there are some people we have not forgiven God for certain things. Some certain things
Yeah.
He allowed to happen, and we're like, we just don't talk about it. The truth is, we haven't not acknowledged it. We
Hmm.
haven't said, you know what, that really messed me up when you allowed that. Because sometimes, in the height of our religion or being religious or spiritual, we just go, hey, we don't need to ask why. But the truth is, if you think about it, Heather, the truth is that really, really close relationships, deep relationships, the
Hmm.
people in those relationships, they have a right to ask why. Like, why
Yes.
did you do this? Why
Hmm.
didn't you do that? Why did you say that? So I think we're just playing religion when we go, oh, don't ask God why.
Yeah.
No, you have to, because
Yeah.
God will give you an answer for it, and you'll communicate with you, and then you can actually put to rest something that was allowed in your life, that
Hmm.
was painful, that was traumatic, but now you're healed from it. God's forgiven you, you're forgiven Him.
And you actually bring that up in your book too, talking about how these things that happen in our life, God allows them to happen as a way of pruning us, right? So if
Mm,
he removes someone from our life or removes a job from our life or a person or whatever it is, there's a reason he did that. It's pruning us, and maybe that job's toxic work environment and we would have never left on our own, and it was
right,
really affecting our soul and our affecting our outlook on life and our time that we would get to spend with God. And so he was like, no, we're just going to make this
right,
disappear in a way of maybe you're let go or maybe you're laid off or
right.
whatever this case is. And same thing with people. That was my experience. I wrote a book last year. It was my first book, and I wrote a 90-day
Mm,
devotional on healing from emotional abuse.
mm,
And I went through this relationship for 2.5 years, and it was a very traumatic relationship. And when you're in it, you don't realize, the trauma that you're in when you're in the midst of it.
yeah.
And then when you're out of it, it's like all these light bulbs are going off and you see all of the red
Mm,
flags. And so when I came out, I really wanted something where I could see what I went through, but see it from a biblical perspective and try to understand what happened. What happened
mm,
to me and how do I overcome this and how do I fight these lies with the truth from God's word, right?
mm,
And so I couldn't find something like that, so I wrote it. And
that's good. So glad you did.
And so I look at that situation and I think if I never would have experienced that, I would not have gotten the opportunity, right? To have
Mm,
this idea in my mind and seeing, I don't see this out there, but I hear all these stories from people that they need this too.
Mm,
And, and so it gave me the opportunity to be able to put something out there. And it also helped me on my own healing journey with that. It's amazing when you look at things like that because it goes back to the scripture you talk about and from Isaiah 43 about, do you not see it? I'm going to make a way through the wasteland. I'm going to create rivers in the dry land. So whenever I hear that scripture, it makes me just want to like sing praises to the Lord. It
mhm.
makes me just want to go, hallelujah, God. I know because I've seen, right? Like
Yeah.
I know you do these things because I've seen it.
Mm,
And so, yeah, so I feel that with the pruning and getting rid of these relationships and these different things in our lives as a God is pruning us for something better.
mm.
And you can't be stuck back here. You've got to
Right, right.
look
Yeah,
ahead and not be
yeah.
fearful of what it is
Yes,
that God's going to do in and through you.
yes. So
Yeah.
true. So true.
Yes. So, speaking of the Isaiah 43, have you seen this scripture play out in your own life in places?
Yeah, I mean, several times I feel like I know, like, just like, for example, coming to the States, I grew up in Kuwait. So I'm actually Pakistani, and my parents are Pakistani, and we were born, my brothers and sisters, we were born in Kuwait. And when I came here, I was after the Gulf War. And I remember when I got to the States, I hadn't graduated from high school. I had no idea what's going on. I was just trying to figure out if I could stay in the country, how could I do it? What's the best way? I'm trying to go into college and all that. So there was a lot of unknowns in my life, a lot of uncertainties because the war put an abrupt stop to my life, So I didn't know what I could do. I mean, I had already aged out in a sense from high school, so I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do there. And then, so what do we do? And so when I came to the States, I had a supernatural experience with Jesus. Like 3 weeks into it, I had this crazy experience. People can read about it and all that. It's in my first book, and then it's online as well. But it's kind of complicated. But it's really comes down to like me having a moment in my room with Jesus, and I knew that I was supposed to be in ministry. Knew that my life was going to be a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I still had immigration issues, and so yeah, so I've seen God create a new thing in my life because I'm like, yeah, God, how am I going to do this? Like, how is this going to work? And me getting a religious asylum was a huge God showing up in a way that I never thought could make a way, because you got to do all these interviews. You have to prove actually that you are a Christian. Yeah, you have to prove to an immigration officer, or you have to go in front of a judge and they put you on trial and say, okay, how can you prove that you're a Christian? It's a serious thing. My brother and I both went through the process together, and I came out of that interview and I told my brother, I was like, there is no way I'm getting this. Like, this lady did not believe anything I said. She thought I was lying about everything. There's no way I'm getting deported. And my brother kind of came out of that interview and he was like, oh man, this was great for me. And I was like, so his story is a little bit more believable, and in a sense. And so, yeah. So all that to say, we both got the religious asylum, and that was a miracle, and then also getting a green card, then becoming a citizen. I mean, there's some really amazing things that God has made a way where there seemed to be none. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and read your first book.
My gosh, there's a lot of stories of all kinds of craziness. Yeah.
I'm adding that to my reading list. So,
Okay. Yes. Do it.
we all experience waiting periods in our lives, right?
Hmm.
So, in your book, you say that God knows all of these beautiful things that exist in our future. But if we're too consumed with yesterday, then we're not going to be able to tap into the potential of tomorrow. You kind of touched on this a little bit about what you just expressed about getting over to the States and getting your citizenship and all of that. But
Hmm.
are there some other dreams or aspirations that you either have currently or that you've experienced a waiting period between what is or what is not happening? And then how did you continue to put your trust in God through that, not get disappointed or discouraged too much that kept you stuck in that place and not being able to see what's ahead for you?
Yeah, that is really a very tricky thing, navigating that with your relationship with God. Because when you're in a place where you're like, I think I'm supposed to go this way and think I'm supposed to do this, and then you kind of keep going, you're doing things and nothing seems to be happening. You're like, you're wondering what's going on. So it is very tricky. And I think having good people around you to help navigate some of those decisions are really great. Like, for example, like sometimes I think like there are things in our life that God just calls us to just seed them. There are times where I'm just seeding a relationship, seeding in ministry. And what I mean by seeding, I mean like it'll grow at its time, but right now I have to seed. So what happens sometimes is when we're doing a work that is a long work with developing, it's with relationships, when it concerns people and something that's bigger, starting anything, starting a podcast, starting writing a book, starting a ministry, you got to keep seeding.
Yeah.
If you stop seeding, the scriptures say you have not because you ask not. So I think if you don't seed, you're not going to see anything grow. Like there's a chance something will grow if there's seed to it.
Right.
But if there's no seed at all, then there's no chance of it ever even becoming anything. So I
Yeah.
encourage people to kind of go and that's why I do it. There are days where I'm like, I don't see any growth. There's sometimes I see growth. If you take that illustration and compare it to a yard, or a garden or something like that, there's some things you seed and you do the work and you see them bloom up and you're like, okay, it's happening. That's great. And then there are times nothing happens. So do you stop? That's the thing. Do you stop when a certain year the weather patterns are different and you're like, well, last year I did this and that's what happened. And this year I'm doing it, nothing's happening. So I just encourage people, you wouldn't stop seeding, would you? You would still seed and you still need to. Even though you don't see growth, even though you don't see something coming out of it, you still have to seed it.
Yeah.
So in my life, I've done that. And is this something I'm supposed to seed
Mhm.
or grow? Am I supposed to go in this direction? And if I really feel I'm supposed to, then I've got to do the work for it and just keep on at it. And then there are other times where I'm like, I don't think I need to do this, so I don't go that direction. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And that's such a good point because you're bringing up so many great analogies that I'm relating to because I started gardening this year. And
Okay.
so like planting the flowers and seeding and all of that. And you're right, I have not been able to keep things alive very good. But I keep trying
Right.
because other people can do this.
Uh-huh.
I just have to figure out what I need to do. I need to figure out what to do to make it grow. And so I get that. And that makes a lot of sense. We're not just going to go, I tried. If it's something that you really feel purpose and calling for,
Right.
you're not just going to go, gave it a shot, moving on. You're not going to give up that fast. But yeah, it's definitely hard to wait and
Mm-hmm.
see. I'm putting this in. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm drained. I'm this. I'm that. But also, it takes work. Starting, like you said, a podcast, a business, writing a book, anything like that. Stuff takes work. It's not just going to be
Yeah.
handed to you on a silver platter. You've got to work for it and
Right.
make sure you're talking to people, connections, community, all of that. So you talked earlier about the why and how we're allowed to ask
Mm-hmm.
God why,
Yeah.
because that's what we do in relationships that with people that we're close to. And we should have a relationship with God where we feel comfortable asking that why question.
Right.
And so this is kind of in regards to maybe a specific waiting period in your life that God wants us to ask him those hard questions because he's not afraid of them. He's not afraid of us to ask. We hear the stories in the Bible all the time about people that doubt. What was it? Was it the father whose daughter was sick?
Mm-hmm.
And he was doubting God that he could heal her. And
Right.
God's not
Yeah.
afraid of that. God expects us to doubt him in some areas, but to seek out the answers from him. So, can you tell me about a time in your life that you experienced waiting and the kind of why questions that you asked God during that time?
There are a lot of times in my life that I feel like I've asked God why,
Oh, yeah,
for
me too.
sure. But yeah, my mom actually got deported right after 9/11. So we're all trying to find our way to settle here in the US. And as I mentioned before earlier, that I had gotten asylum, religious refugee status to stay here. And then my sister came and then my other sister came and there was a point where we were all in the US and it was all going to work out. And then because of 9/11, they went to these mass deportations where if anybody was without status for even a week. Now, without status means you could literally be without status, as in like you apply for something, you get an answer, and the answer is no. And then you reapply with a lawyer, resubmit paperwork.
Hmm.
Well, even if there was a week delay of that, she was without status. And so because of that, she got deported to Pakistan. And the problem was we didn't know how long. We didn't know how long at all. And so that was like, I cannot believe, God, that you brought us to a point. You brought all the siblings here. We had this major turn of events. We all came to faith in Jesus. And then while we're here waiting for mom, this happens. So I couldn't understand why. I was like, how is this going to serve any purpose? And then she was going back to Pakistan, where she hadn't lived for 30 years. And then all the family in Pakistan, my cousins and all, they did not know of our conversions. And in Pakistan, it's punishable by death. Definitely, they'll imprison you. And so that's why I got the religious asylum from the country. So now she heads there. She's sent there. So we found out that it was either going to be 3 years or 10 years, but we
Whoa,
didn't know. Yeah.
that's a big
So
difference.
it's huge, big difference. Yeah. And so what was so devastating is that my wife and I were having kids and my
Hmm.
siblings were having kids. So here's the grandmother is now in Pakistan and didn't see the birth of these kids. So again, there were so many whys, why God, why God. And yeah, and so I eventually had to go into Pakistan kind of incognito, which meant like, no one knew about it because I didn't want to let people know because, again, if they found out who I really was and if news spread and all that, because of social media, I would have been detained and arrested and probably never have made it back to the States. But I had to go because I needed to go to the American embassy there. So all this work, all this risk, all that is like, why? Why God? Why God? Why God? Why are you doing this? But eventually, it did take 3 years. And those 3 years, we had to sell our house. We had all moved away, but my mom and dad's house, we sold it. And then the last year or so, dad was like, okay, well, I'm just going to head back to Pakistan. So then he goes back to Pakistan to stay with her because my mom also got kicked out of her own sister's house because one of my cousins found out that we had converted to Christianity, told the rest of the family, and they kicked her out of the
Oh
house.
my gosh.
So my mom has actually felt the persecution of being a follower. Not she wasn't even a follower of Jesus. I mean, she was a Muslim. She was still a Muslim, but her kids had become. And so yeah, it was a really a big mess. So yeah, definitely had a moment where it was like, why? But now there were some really cool things that happened. One of the things that did happen is that when she did come back, my mom and dad had sold their house and they didn't have a place and they were trying to figure out where they would stay. And they ended up staying with me and my wife in this house and
Wow.
for 3 years. And those 3 years were huge for my little kids
Mm,
because even now they have a very special relationship with their grandmother and the grandfather. And
yeah.
just embracing the culture and the food. We joke about it. My kids are they're the most Pakistani kids because
Yeah.
they grew up with grandma.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't have happened, honestly, if mom wouldn't have gotten deported because I think she would have just stayed in South Carolina and we're in North Carolina.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So that's one of the things. And so now even my son has a very close relationship with her grandmother
Yeah.
because of that times. Yeah.
Yeah. So many beautiful things come from
Right.
the things we can't see, but
Right.
God sees.
It was so puzzling, so disheartening when she was gone for so many years. We thought it was going to be 10 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank God that it was not.
correct.
Wow. Wow. So you talk in the book about Babylon seasons and how in these moments that we should be putting our energy into creating and not coping during this unexpected time. And so God is asking us to do it again, whether the it is putting down roots or trusting
Right.
God, falling in love, etc. So can you explain where this term Babylon seasons come from and how we can move forward in these times when we've done one thing, it's been rejected, but we need to do it again and again.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. The reference from Babylon comes from the story in the scriptures where the Israelites found themselves in a time where Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, came in and exiled people from Jerusalem to Babylon. And so basically these people were one taken from their context, their homes, their places of security and season of prosperity, and moved into to now becoming strangers in a very strange land. And so I referenced it. The idea is that because sometimes we find ourselves in seasons where we're like, I was in a good season, and now all of a sudden I'm this new year. Last year was I had XYZ. Now this year I'm divorced. I'm out of a job. I'm this and this. So it
Oh,
just
yeah.
feels like I'm in a strange season. I just feel like a stranger in my own body. Like
Mhm.
what is happening in my life? Like what's happening? Like my life was all good. And it feels like you've been exiled, to a place of despair, exiled to a place of loneliness, or a place of like, I don't know. Nothing is familiar in this season right now. So that's what I call Babylon. The spaces like that. But in the middle of that, the story in the scriptures talk about how God speaks to Jeremiah the prophet, and He
Mhm.
tells them something. Which we love Jeremiah 29:11. twenty nine
Right.
eleven says, "For I know the plans I have for you," says the Lord, "plans to give you a hope in the future." Plans
Mhm.
for good, not for disaster. And so we love that passage of scripture. But that actually is the last line of a whole thing that God says before that we don't read. So He starts off by saying, "You've been exiled, and I want you to know I allowed it. I have allowed this." And then He says, "Here's what I want you to do." He says, "I want you to build homes. I want you to plant gardens. I want you to marry. I want you to have grandkids. I want you to not dwindle away." And like all those things are build, create, settle down. And then He tells them, also, the other prophets and the fortune tellers there, the people there are going to tell you something. Don't listen to them. And what they were saying was that God was going to deliver them out of it really quick. He says, don't believe them. I did not send them. Also, let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to be here for 70 years. Oh my gosh. You're going to be here for 70 years. And then I'm going to come and save you because then he says it in verse 11. Then he says, because I know the plans I have for you, and they're not for disaster, but for good, trying to give you a hope and future. So he says all that after telling them, number one, you're going to be there for 70 years. Also, I want you to do some work while you're there. So we don't hear that sometimes. What we really need to do is hear that, because if we find ourselves in a season like a Babylon season, here's what we don't need to do. We do not need to dwindle away. Our
Mm.
souls don't need to dwindle away. And the way we keep ourselves from dwindling away is by doing what God says, building, creating, planting, risking in love, doing the things we need to do. So I tell people there's healing in creating beauty. There's healing in beauty, but there's healing in creating beauty. And the reason is because you can't create something without loving it. And you can't create something beautiful without loving it. Like
Yeah.
if you want a beautiful life, if you want a beautiful relationship, you are going to be emotionally tied to that thing.
Yeah.
People will say, "Oh, this is beautiful." I mean, if you look at it, because I'm not emotionally connected to it, I might go, "Well, I don't think it's that beautiful," but
Right.
you love it. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? It's like, no, my kid, or no, this music, or no, this food, or whatever. Everything we think it's beautiful, we are emotionally connected to it because we somehow like it or are attracted to it, or we give our affections to it. That's
Yeah.
the only way something becomes beautiful to us.
Yes.
So we have to love it. And so when we do this, that's why it says love casts out fear,
Mhm.
love casts out anxiety, because we have to understand that we got to allow love to lead us. And when love leads us, it leads us to creating beautiful things. And once
Yeah.
we create beautiful things, we actually tap into who we are. What do I mean by that? I mean by us tapping into the way God made us. God made
Mhm.
us in His own image. We were made to create beautiful things out of love. Here's why.
Yeah.
In Genesis, gives us the creation story. Have you noticed in the creation story, day one, God makes something. He stops and goes, "Oh, that's good." The next day, He creates something. He goes, "That's good." He does it almost every day. And the last day, sixth day, He makes us, and everything else is made. And then He goes, "Oh, it's really good."
Mm.
You know what's so funny about that? Have you ever done anything and stopped and looked at it and went, oh, no, that was great. We've cooked things before. We've cooked things. You're like, oh my gosh. We tasted it. Like, oh, that's so good.
Yep.
We have drawn something. We have made something. It could be anything from knitting a sweater to making up a song or a poem or saying anything that someone creates. We go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That was great. Even we perform, we do something out of our talent and people go, oh no, that's great. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. We compliment each other and we compliment ourselves. We do something and we're like, oh my gosh, I killed that. That was awesome. Where do we think we got that from? God. He literally is complimenting himself. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. That's good. Only a creator does that. Someone who creates, only an artist does that. Only someone who creates beautiful things does that. And so that's healing. So I say in Babylon seasons, you have to create because you are going to get really close to the creator. You're gonna be most like him when you create in the middle of brokenness, And that's why I say we are the broken becoming beautiful in the book,
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. You're right. There are plenty of times when I've done something and I'm like, that is good. That is so good,
Yeah. Right.
And then you're like, okay, wait, hold on, let me be humble. But really, that's good.
Right. You're right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. See, now you can blame God for that because he made you like that. So
Exactly.
yeah.
You talk about the chronos and kairos time from the Bible. And so I have to share with you a kairos moment that I had recently. As you state in your book, the kairos times are divine moments in time. So God sets up these moments so that we know that God is speaking through other people to us. And the words that someone says pierce our hearts and comfort our souls because they're from God himself. This is what you write in your book. So I went out to California at the end of February for a writer's workshop. And I always take extra copies of my book. And if I'm in an airport, I'll do a book drop and drop my book in different places. Hopefully people will pick it up and it'll get into the right hands.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at my gate waiting to get on, and this girl comes and sits next to me, and they start calling the zones to board. And she's like, I don't know what zone I'm in. And I said, it's on your ticket. And so she looks, and I said, if you didn't pick a seat, you're probably in zone F like me. And she's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm probably in zone F. So we're just chatting for a second. And I said, are you from California? And she's like, no, I'm going there for work. What about you? And I said, oh, I'm going for a writer's workshop. And she goes, oh, you're a writer? I said, yeah, I published my first book last year. And she's like, oh, wow. Do you have a copy with you? I'd love to have one. And I said,
No
sure.
way.
She has no idea what my book's about. Nothing. Pull the book out, and she's like, will you sign it for me? My name is Nora. So I'm like taking this book out to her and give her this book, and it's called Healing on the Horizon. So she picks it up and she looks at it and she goes, Healing on the Horizon? And she clasps it to her chest. And she goes, you do not know how much I need this book. And I said, really? And she goes, yes. She said, I just got out of a relationship with a narcissist and it has been so destructive. And I said, oh, girl, God is good. God is good. And she goes, it was meant for me to see you and to meet you. I just can't believe this. This is amazing. And I'm like, okay, God, because I was going out to this writer's workshop and this was a spur of the moment thing. I decided, and I was like, God, if you want me to go, you will make a way financially for me to do this. And he did. And then I get on the airplane and I'm sitting next to this woman, and I look over and I see this book that she's reading, and I was trying to figure out how to market my book better. And so I asked her, are you an avid reader? And she's like, I try to be. I don't get to read much, but I do try to be when I can. And I said, what prompts you to pick up a book? Is it the cover? Is it the title? Is it somebody referred you to it? She's like, oh, well, I'm a Christian, so like I try to pick up Christian books. I really like to read Christian books, and a lot of the self-help ones or things that'll kind of help me grow. And I said, I just wrote a book called Healing on the Horizon. It's about healing from emotional abuse. And she goes, oh my gosh, I just got out of a marriage with a narcissist.
Oh my gosh.
So on that 5-hour flight, we probably talked for 2 or 3 hours of this flight, and we are having church on the airplane, okay? We are just talking, sharing our stories. We're both sobbing. I mean, people probably thought, what is wrong with you people? But we were just having this moment, and I was telling her about really dark time and a struggle when I needed your book, Tomorrow Needs You, during that time of the healing and all of that. She was just telling me her story, and I got to tell her about my book and share and pour love into her. And it was such a cool experience. And then I said, this is going to sound really weird, but can I take a picture of us? Because I don't want to forget this moment. And
Mm.
she said, absolutely. So we get off the airplane and she's waiting for me. And she said,
Wow.
can I hug you? And I said, absolutely. And so she hugged me and she goes, I need to tell you, I feel like God needs me to tell you this. She said,
Mm.
keep doing what you're doing because God has big plans for you. She said, keep following his lead. And
Yeah.
I mean, if I wasn't crying already, I would have started crying right then. But I was like, oh my word. So those moments, those were divine moments.
You're right. Yeah.
I don't keep in touch with them or anything, but in those moments, God set that up. That was
Yeah.
divine. That was divine
Yeah.
intervention for him to set that up. And I just feel like seeing the beauty in those
Mm.
moments, the words
Mm.
that she gave me encouraged me so much in that time to keep doing what God's telling me to do. Keep following his lead, keep persevering, keep planting, keep
Mm.
seeding,
Yeah. Yeah.
keep doing
Yeah.
that. And that was such a beautiful moment, and for me to look at and say, you don't have to be fearful of starting a podcast. You don't have to be fearful of these things because look at this beautiful moment that was created
Right.
for
Right.
you by God.
Yeah. 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 So true. So
It
good.
yeah.
That's such a cool story. Very cool story.
Yes.
Yeah. It's moments like those. They're divine, but they're also defining. They
Mm,
define you as a person sometimes as well. So it's awesome.
totally. Totally. Well, my last question for you. I ask all my
Okay.
guests this question. So,
Yes.
if you could talk to your younger self and tell them anything, where would you be? Who would be around? Kind of set the scene for us and tell us what that looks like to you and what you would say.
Yeah, I think I would tell my younger self to really not worry so much about fitting in. I spent so much of my life just trying to fit in. And the reason is because being an immigrant, speaking different languages, coming into a culture, the goal is always to assimilate, assimilate, assimilate. Now, you don't just assimilate, you become a certain kind of person that you think everybody else wants you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did that a whole lot in my life, or trying to fit a role and trying to worry about that a whole lot. And I did some things that I don't think I really allowed myself to find out who I was because I was
Yeah.
too busy trying to be someone else.
Yeah.
So I would tell myself, hey, don't just try to fit in, but also not trying to define my success by other people's mile markers. I feel like I saw people and go, okay, then that is what success and significance looks like. And I
Mm-hmm.
got to pursue that. And it was just very different for me. I think I spent a lot of time focusing on the wrong things and didn't even realize I was doing that. So yeah, I'd go back and fix that.
And if you don't mind, I want to
Yes.
read an excerpt from your book
Oh, please. Yeah.
as we close. So this is from page 124. It says, Jesus has been with you throughout your whole life. Like me, you probably did not notice his presence and his pursuit of you, but I can assure you, he's been with you this whole time. He was with you when you were betrayed, abused, and abandoned. He was there when you felt all alone, ashamed, and vulnerable. He has been there at the high points of your life and the lowest lows of your life. We have been told to follow Jesus, but Jesus doesn't want just followers. He wants friends. He's not a God who wants to bulldoze your plans in life, but rather he wants to partner with you to fulfill your purpose. A beautiful friendship with Jesus demolishes all the fears in our lives.
Mm.
Ooh,
You okay?
I am that. I was on my couch sobbing as I read that. And that's a good that's good paragraph. I mean, that is just one good paragraph in all the pages of this book.
I have to apologize for all the people who have made cry because of my book. It seems like everybody cries, but it's a
But
good cry. It's a
it
good thing.
is.
It's a,
That's what I was
yeah,
gonna say. It's a good thing because it's such a good reminder that God is always there. He's always
yeah,
with us at the high points and the low points, and he's our friend.
yeah,
And I think that we can forget that sometimes, that he doesn't want us just to be all stuffy and professional when we talk to him. We can talk to him like you and I are talking right now.
right.
And your book is just such a great reminder to
Mm,
remember those beautiful moments and create those beautiful moments in your life and invite those beautiful moments in your life, because you can live a much fuller life when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much for taking the time to be on here and to chat with me. And I wish you all the success with this book. I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering you on.
Thank you so much, Heather. It was really
Yeah.
great the great conversation. Thankful for what you're doing. Like the lady said, keep doing what you're doing. Keep seeding your dream,
Thank you.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Did you find yourself resonating with many of the things Naeem and I talked about? I'm so thankful for his book and the reminder that sometimes we have to face our fears head on and make space for these beautiful moments in our life so that we don't remain imprisoned by fear. In the show notes, there is lots of information to keep you connected with Naeem. You can find his Instagram handle and the link to purchase his book. And if you want to hear more of Naeem's teachings, the link to his sermons at Mosaic Church will be there as well. Will you all just take a minute to visit his Instagram and let him know how much we appreciate him being on the podcast today? If today's episode spoke to you, would you share it with a friend, leave a review, and be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss what's coming next? All of these actions really help podcasts like mine get out into the world and reach more listeners. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, keep living between the now and the next.